Hey now, it's Dan Aberhart here, today's host of the Growing the Future podcast. We're back with Season 4, Episode 7. You can sign up for our newsletter at growingthefuturepodcast.ca to get emails about our new episodes and find out all about our old episodes there. Make sure to give us a follow on social media platforms out there. We're on all of them. And check out our YouTube channel if you want to watch a video of this conversation. You can also find the Aberhart family of companies online, starting with aberhartfarms.com. To learn more about our farming operation in Saskatchewan, we're going to be talking about that farming operation today. Suregrowth.ca to learn more about the precision agronomy consulting services offered there. Convergencegrowth.com, where they accelerate solutions across food, health, and agriculture. And last but not least, AberhartAgSolutions.ca, where we deliver one-of-a-kind fertility solutions of the future to your farm. My next guest is the president and founder of Maverick Ag and CFO at Hebert Grain Ventures. Works with Christian Hebert. He provides risk management and financial consulting solutions to agriculture operations. His goal is to change the face of financial risk management in agriculture and leave the dirt and the financial statements in the industry in a better state than the last generation. No small task. He was a guest in the very first season of the show. We talked to him at AgSmart. He sat down with Terry in episode 20. I'm excited to have him on the show again to catch up what's been going on. There's a lot of things in the world that we want to be talking about here in agriculture. You can find him on Twitter, LinkedIn, and check out the website at maverickag.com. Hey, and today we're going to talk about what in the double hockey sticks is going on in the world of agriculture. It's a wild and wicked world today, spring 2022. Number two, we want to talk about a little bit more of the nitty-gritty details about how this individual works with my brother's farm as a CFO. And then number three, they're offering a new program, much like Strategic Coach, for farmers to get coaching to better their business. And that's really the reason I wanted him on the show too. I just so much excitement around the idea of farmers having someone to coach them. Welcome to the show, Evan Shout.
It is an interesting world out there, Dan. I'm not going to lie.
So what is going on in the world right now? And of course, everything's clickbait. You don't know what to believe anymore. But I mean, you and I, when we ran into each other, we just came off the geopolitical presentation by none other than Peter Zehan, which we were talking about, hey, maybe that's a little miscalibrated to the far spectrum of like, could all that be true? And actually half of it be true. We still got a problem. But there's a lot been going on in the world. Record commodity prices, record fertility prices, on and on, supply shortages. Insurance must be wild to be dealing with. Financials right now, people's mental health. Where are you at with farming?
I'd like to say I'm involved in all of the above, to tell you the truth. It has been an interesting spring, I'm not going to lie. And yeah. I mean, like we said, we both read Zehan's articles the other day. And I mean, I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm just saying that what he's talking about is happening. So from my perspective, I've spent probably the last 3 months getting farms prepared, getting things in line, I guess, for this year at least. And I mean, most of it, what we're seeing is this year, I don't have a projection that looks that terrible other than possibly having some more weather outlooks that we had last year.
Right. I
mean, if you look at commodity prices, even with the increase in fertilizer costs, we're still looking at possibly one of the biggest gross margin years for farms ever. And that's across the spectrum. Like, that's not just the farms I'm dealing with. That's on the insurance side. I'm having the same conversations with guys, is that the opportunity this year is probably a once in a lifetime for a lot of guys. So it's exciting. Now, on the other side of that exciting is also, we just came through probably one of the worst droughts in Western Canada we've ever had. Guys got burnt last year. I mean, whether it was contract buyouts, whether it was not growing the crop, whether it was overpriced fertilizer that they had to buy this spring. It's kind of been a collaboration of everything at once, which, I mean, we'll talk about some of the mental health issues and stuff like that, but I've never had a year where things are coming at you so fast from every direction, and every week is different. I mean, once the war in Ukraine started, everything changed on the wheat markets, everything changed on fertilizer discussions. It used to be you had a little bit of a delay to plan. That delay is gone. I mean, from day to day, Markets are going limit up, limit down. Fertilizer prices within 2 weeks after January went from manageable to, wow, we should have bought 3 weeks ago. So, I mean, it's an interesting times, and the guys who have planned and the guys who have done the work in advance, I think are going to see some really good outcomes this year. The guys that have sat back and waited and thought, fertilizer is going to go down as we get into May. It's already too high. Or I'm not going to book anything because I think the prices are going to stay, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But it's the forward planning I've noticed this year that has got guys into a much better position, where in the past, maybe there wasn't as many opportunities, but this year it's big. And the numbers, I mean, some of the numbers I'm seeing from some of the projections, this is a multi-generational wealth year.
How many and who have planned, and how many and who have not planned?
I want to say, I know from my client book a lot, but I mean from an overall entire ag industry, I'd like to say 20 to 30% probably had fertilizer in the bin, or at least ordered at some decent prices. And I mean, the gains we made from August when we made our purchases to year end, I mean, we probably gained a 20% to 25% margin hike just on having the ability to pre-buy that early. Now, don't get me wrong, coming through a drought last year, there's a lot of guys that had a cash flow crunch and a lot of guys who didn't have the ability to get it in the bin and booked. And they're probably going to feel some of those costs this year. I'm just hoping the weather cooperates and those same guys can get some of the upswing on the margin, because they're going to need it in order to pay off those bills.
What was the psychology for waiting? Why did 80% of the folks wait?
I would say some of it just cash flow. I mean, guys either weren't insured for what happened last year, because, I mean, we used to joke, I never used to look at risk management under a 30% crop, because I thought, genetics we have nowadays, the seeding units we have, a 30% crop isn't possible anymore in Western Canada.
Right.
And honestly, within 2 months, whether it was the 40 above heat or absolutely no rain, we all got proved wrong. And it's not just me. This used to be, public accounting used to treat it this way. So it was essentially just a cluster of everything happening last year that just caught guys off guard. Cash flow wasn't there to make those purchases. A lot of other things. Fertilizer guys, if you could take delivery, so if you had the storage in place, you could get it. If you weren't willing to take delivery, they weren't willing to hold it, because they needed to make, they themselves had to buy at low prices just to make their margins. So technically, if you aren't a guy that has a whole bunch of fertilizer storage, or even the anhydrous guys, I know they're feeling it because they had to wait for delivery, right? So essentially, you're kind of at the mercy of what you're given, which right now is ugly fertilizer prices.
Absolutely. I just wonder a little bit as you're talking, do you think guys prefer this lifetime opportunity to make this big margin, or does farmers wish they're sort of chugging along near the bottom where they usually are?
I'd like to say it depends who you talk to, right?
Right.
I've got a lot of clients that, they've done very well in the equity sector, and they've done very well profitability wise, but they're more addicted to the game, is kind of the term we use. They like this type of environment, which, nice. Don't get me wrong, isn't a lot of them. And I'm not saying it's me. I like the lower stress environment where I'm not dealing with 30 phone calls a day because something happened. But right. A lot of guys just like the game. Now, that might not be the biggest percentage. The biggest percentage, I would say, like a little less risk, a little less volatility. They're in the farming to have a lifestyle. And honestly, this year has taken that lifestyle and they've turned it into, you better be ready to run it like a business, because the decisions you're making and what you're getting faced with on the geopolitical and the cost side, these aren't family farm decisions anymore. These are business decisions. And there's a lot of zeros and there's a lot of downside risk if you're not ready for these.
Oh man, that must be such a shift, really, because we do think of it as a lifestyle,
yep.
But you might not be afforded that luxury as much going forward in such a volatile environment.
And we've seen that start already. With the sector of ag tech and how things are getting more complex and more complicated on the farms. The machinery is getting bigger. The timing to get stuff done is shrinking. And as farms grow, the labor components, farms have never really been good at HR because they've never had to be. It was always, 3,000 acres. We can manage it as a family unit. We don't need to get the skills in order to have a team. Well, what they realized is as they've expanded, and some of the expansion was just trying to cover costs, and they had to expand because family members were coming in. All of a sudden now they've had to turn their business into being HR managers, which is a hard job for the best of us. So now it's no longer that slow lifestyle. It's you now have to be CEO, CFO, COO, management, and on top of that, grow a crop, right?
Shit shoveler.
Well, yeah, it's
Like
come down to you can't be a farmer anymore. You actually have to be a jack of all trades, and a lot of guys don't like that.
Yeah. So can you paint a bit of a picture about people that, experienced the fruits of planning and risk management and having that objective eye on their business last year versus not? I mean,
Yeah.
It seemed like it was a tale of two farms last year, right? And so dramatic.
Yeah. And I think the line I've always used is you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's more or less, a lot of the industry doesn't realize that when it comes to risk management, whether it's insurance or even just cost production, financials, there's a lot of planning that goes into a lot of these farms. So it's not as simple as we've always done it that way. It's literally every year, on our insurance book, I run tens of scenarios for every farm of what happens if this happens? What's the worst case scenario? Based on our position of equity, our position of working capital, can we afford to not be insured to the top? It's those decisions of going through your whole farm and deciding what worst case scenario can we take and still keep moving forward. And then you've got the farms who are, I'd rather be insured really well, because if there's a bad year, I want to come out smelling like a rose because I'd like to expand more. I want future opportunities. So they're willing to spend a little more on the risk management side in order to not go backwards, because it gives them that competitive advantage, right? And a lot of guys, insurance is a dirty word in this industry for a lot of guys. Right. It's right. They don't like spending. It's not tangible. You buy a combine, the combine's sitting on the front lawn. It looks really pretty. It's got new paint. It's got plastic on the seats. You see it. You put money into an insurance policy or into a new debt financing or anything like that, it's just a piece of paper. So it's really hard to see the benefits. Well, last year, in, like I said, one of the worst weather years we've had, the guys who had it definitely saw the uptake. So I had numerous farms that honestly came out of last year no worse for wear, if not better. And those farms have continued to expand and continued to grow. And honestly, when they come to decision making this year, they're not hesitant, like they're not held back. So most of my farms have already started booking grain. Now, with the commodity market still being quite bullish, whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but it's definitely a risk management because we have $21 canola booked, right? And it's just that philosophy of, if you never take the hit, you never hesitate. So they still did their fertilizer plans just like normal. We still do our marketing just like normal. There is no holdback. Where guys who, might have got burned last year, we always joke that good grain prices hurt guys 2 years in a row, because last year they overbooked. So this year they're not going to book at all. So it's just learning how to manage through the downtimes might actually be one of the hardest skills for farmers to actually come around. But once they do it, it's also one of the biggest opportunities.
You say you don't know what you don't know. What do farmers not know right now?
I would say, as going back to the Zehan article, I'm not sure farmers know what's coming. And what I mean by that is that I don't want to go too pessimistic here, because my job is to be pessimistic. I'm supposed to be the risk manager, but theoretically, I think we're in for a year or two of decent years. Even with high fertilizer prices next year, I think the commodity markets should hold based on what I've heard and what I know. But sooner or later, we're going to see the downturn. And for me, the downturn in the worst case scenario is that commodity prices start to soften and expenditures never soften at the same rate. So all of a sudden, we're going to go into a year where guys have pre-bought really expensive fertilizer. Fuel is still at an all-time high. Inflation has pushed every other cost on the income statement up. And all of a sudden, we're going to go back to $12 to $14 canola and $8 wheat. And, 5 years ago, we could still make margin on that. If you take today's inputs and today's fuel costs and add some inflation, all of a sudden we're going to have 1 or 2 years where guys are going to get hurt. So it's more that planning of, okay, we're going to go through some good years here. Who can actually hold on to the money, not go out and redo the equipment line or personal spending and have the cabin and the boat and everything else? Who can actually plan and be ready for when the downturn hits? Because trust me, there's going to be a downturn, whether guys want to believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to stay at $24 canola.
Okay, Evan, 2 years from now, everything goes to shit. What do I, your coach, you're my guy. What do I do right now?
So I would say, for starters, grow a crop this year. That'd be number one. And if you can't grow a crop, make sure you're insured for that crop this year. Because I mean, what doesn't matter what insurance you took this year, they're all very strong because of the way the markets have gone. Make sure that you're covered so you're not going backwards. That's number one. Because if you go backwards on a good year, you're not going to be prepared for when the bad year comes. The other one is make sure your ratios on your financial statements are where they need to be. Working capital probably being the number one. So cash is king is still a viable term in agriculture, and mostly for the reason that you get to make the decisions. So what I mean by that is, if you had a big cash reserve last year, you probably held your inventory, and instead of selling canola at 17, you're now selling it at 24. You probably pre-bought your inputs in July and August at 50% of the price they are today. So by having working capital or cash in excess or saved, you probably just made 40% margin that other guys didn't make. And it wasn't because you did anything different other than you could hold out for sales and you could pre-buy quickly. So going into downturn years, you want to have that working capital, or like we call it a treasure chest, sitting there, because those years, you just got to ride the boat. And if you can ride the boat and, take your bumps but still survive, you've come out of 2 or 3 really good years. You survive the down years. You take the volatility out. You insure appropriately. Next upcycle, you're actually going into it in a great position.
There's going to be a lot of opportunity, isn't there? There's going to be a lot of consolidation.
You're going to see, and this is strictly my opinion, Dan, and it goes against what some of the industry is saying. I think my whole summer on the consulting side is going to be doing land deals, because I think we're going into a year where farms could have a big excess of cash. Older farmers are going to see the upside of, we just came through $24 canola. Land prices are going to be at an all-time high. Rent prices are going to be at an all-time high. I think there's going to be a lot of land trading this summer and this fall.
Well, and there's also the human thing. I mean, when I worked with John Deere, the mechanic always used to say it's the seat to the steering wheel linkage. I mean, probably a lot of people too at a certain stage in their life are tired of playing this game. They don't want to play the game anymore, and they have some equity, but they don't want to be risking it at the blackjack tables in Vegas, so to speak.
Yeah. And that's what this year is. We essentially are gambling this year because whether it's fertilizer prices, commodity prices, weather, we are playing a very high risk game. And yes, there's a way to mitigate it, but you're still playing the game and it's still tiring. And, leading into the mental health side is guys are getting more tired. Like the decisions they make on the daily, the stress involved around those decisions is a lot bigger than it was a decade ago. And I think that's leading into what we're seeing.
Yeah, and I think that's a great, we're going to talk more about some of the solutions there. And I think that's more than ever why people need clarity in coaching and whatnot. But if I'm sitting across the table from you and we're just starting to talk, like, what is your number one tool that you would say we're going to implement?
So usually, my conversations would more or less start as where are we today? So it's going through the financials, it's going through your current, where are we sitting today? Because without knowing where we are today, there is no clear plan of where we're going forward, right? And it's that start that probably is the first conversation, and the most important is just get a start. So, there's numerous advisors in the industry. The problem is not a lot of us are actually used. So this whole rugged individualism, we go at it ourselves. That's been farming for the last 30 years, and I was involved in it. So, it was, you live by yourself, you die by yourself, or you win by yourself, right? It's that mentality that's got to change, because like I said, you're now CEO, COO, CFO, you need help. And I'm not saying you can't do it on your own. I'm just saying it's a lot less lonely if you don't do it on your own. And that's where most of my clientele comes in, is that they, especially on the financial side, there's a lot of zeros. There's a lot of financing. There's a lot of leverage. There's a lot of financial decisions on the daily that could make dire outcomes on a farm, and they don't want the stress. They'd rather sit down with me a few times a year and let's figure it out. Let's have a plan so that when you go to bed at night, you know that if X or this happens, we have a plan.
What are you strongest at helping producers with? Insurance, marketing?
Not marketing, I can promise you that. Last year would have proved that for me. I'm not a marketer, but honestly, the financial and risk management side of it is my strength. So coming from public accounting background, I noticed really early that financial projections, planning, budget to actuals, all the things that other industries do monthly or weekly or on the daily, agriculture doesn't do. Most agriculture get their statements 4 months after year end and they go, oh, I made money last year. We can farm again.
Oh.
And that's what it is.
Right.
It's a reactive industry, and it always has been. What we're finding is these progressive growers, and the new ideal is that no, we don't like making decisions not knowing the outcome. So most of my work is around, okay, well, let's know the outcomes. So like weekly scorecards, monthly financial statements, budget to actuals to make sure that our costs are not escalating during the season, so we know the outcome. I mean, most of my guys know their bottom line the moment the combine hits the field. So if we grow 55 wheat and our contracts are at this price, I know I made X per acre on my wheat. It's those real-time data decisions that are making changes. The other one is the risk profile. The higher the risk, the more insurance, guys. And it's not a bad thing. The guys who want to play the expansion game and get aggressive and highly leveraged and do that, they also insure. So they make sure that bottom end, they don't go backwards. Because if you're going to go out and buy and expand double or expand triple or do whatever you're doing on the progressive side, you can't go backwards. If you go backwards, you're just digging a hole and probably working more for less money. So it's the risk management and the financial side where I probably have my highest uptake.
Are people coming to you just when they reach a breaking point or for slight improvements?
To tell you the truth, most of my clientele are coming to me just for a change. So what I mean by that is they are looking to take the next step. So when I worked in public accounting, a lot of my time was spent putting out fires, is what we used to say is, we've had a couple bad years. What do we have to do to get out of this? And it was great work and it was interesting and it was rewarding. It was also got a little repetitive at the end, where once I started with Maverick and we have a niche of clients that we deal with, it became more, how do we take that next step outside of a normal operation? So whether it's, do we diversify? Do we expand hard? Do we, leverage more debt? Like the competitive nature and the guys I work with, such as, Terry, your brother, and Christian, and it's not as simple as we're just farmers. It's how do we take this operation to the next level? Because we want this thing to be here for the next 200 years. Like we're not farming just for this generation. We're farming for the next 10.
Question about, just talking about Terry acting as CFO. How good are Terry's ratios?
I'm not giving you that information. That one would not get me in a good spot.
How's my inheritance doing? Let's be real. Come on, let's talk about
Yeah.
inheritance. Or how much better did they get under your tutelage? Because I know when I did attend one of those advisory board meetings and you were flashing the ratios, I'm like, holy, this guy's into ratios. It's a key metrics for you though, is those dashboards, right?
Yeah, it's a cheat sheet. So it's essentially, it's no different than going to your doctor. If your health is not good, you're in a bad situation. And it's no different on the financial side. If the farm does not have certain ratios and are not hitting certain metrics, I can't help. So I can't go to the bank for more financing. I can't let you expand. You can't make the decisions that you need to make. So when I told guys last July, August, we need to pre-buy fertilizer, you better have had cash in the bank to pre-buy fertilizer. So it's having the ability to the health check that does it for most guys. And I mean, especially dealing with Terry and Christian, is the EOS system, the internal management system.
Yeah.
It's a totally different game. So they've set their teams up. So the farm is not just on Terry's shoulders or Christian's shoulders. It's their team that makes them how strong they are. So it's, for example, I'm CFO. So that's a role that those two guys don't have to take on. Mm-hmm. They both have COOs. They both have guys that run the day-to-day, that do the HR management, that are in charge of the team. So what it does is it gives the head guys, whether it's Christian or Terry, it gives them time to work on the business, which honestly is where I want them. Because if they're coming up with the next big picture item, whether it's an expansion, whether it's moving into a different industry, whether it's value add, or even as simple as, meeting with the right individuals to get us to the next level, that's where I want them. I don't want them on a combine. I don't want them hiring and firing. Those are tasks that we can hire out for. And we have really good people that can do that. Like the saying we have is we don't hire good people to tell them what to do. We hire good people so they can tell us what to do. And honestly, we both believe that.
And just for our listeners that might not be familiar, what is the entrepreneurial operating system?
So EOS it's essentially based on the book Traction by Gino Wickman. So it is let's call it a small business operating system. So for example, when I started with MNP back in the day, or if you start working for Walmart or a big company, there's policies in place. There's hierarchies, roles, communication. There's a whole bunch of things that big companies have that small businesses have never used. So what the EOS is it's a very simplified operating system for a small business. It gives us the ability to sit down and say, how do we get our employees in the right roles, in the right seats, accountable, open communication lines so that our whole team knows where our vision is, what's our 10-year goal, what's our 3-year, what's our 1-year. It's literally opening up the business and turning it from a small family farm into a large family farm that has a whole bunch of members that are transparent, communicate, and take that to the next level. In business, what we'll talk about is most businesses hit the ceiling. And what that means is you have a really high trajectory. And whether it's you make a really good product, let's say you're a retail store, and then all of a sudden people stop buying that product because it's old or it's stagnant. You hit a ceiling. Most businesses stay there, and that's where they die. It's the ability to get to the next ceiling, and then you're going to hit another one and another one. So all EOS does is it gives us the ability to get through those ceilings. So come through a drought last year. We had a bad year. There's your ceiling. We could stop making decisions. We could not market grain because we're scared of what's going to happen. We not pre-buy, or we pull back fertilizer because it's too expensive. Well, that's the ceiling. We've just limited our ability to get through it. Instead, we sat down as a group, said, what's our working capital look like? What's our position? Nope, we're going to market into this. We're going to book $21 canola to start, so many bushel. We're going to pre-buy all the fertilizer. We're going to put on the same rates we've always done because we're assuming probability-wise we're going to get weather that's going to be good this summer. It's just getting through those ceilings. And the way EOS does it is it forces us to set goals. And don't get me wrong, a lot of farms or even a lot of businesses, goal setting always falls to the wayside. It's not seen as important. We are, in terms of goal setting, we have done extraordinarily well in the last 2 years because of EOS. It focuses your entire team. It allows me to look at the people that are under me and say, here's my goals for the quarter. This is directly going to tie to you guys. How are you guys going to help me achieve these? Because my goal is not to sit in my office 12 hours a day and do this. My goal is to have a whole team that we work together to get all of these things done.
What have you seen since you started working with Aberhart Farms? And, I think you were there when they started implementing it. What does this all look like as you're witnessing it?
The big one to me is that I think Terry's been able to leverage a lot of tasks that maybe in the past he couldn't. So the problem I have with a lot of visionaries or a lot of the top guys is that they have two factors. They have a guilt factor. So, it's 10 o'clock at night. You've been in the field for 14 hours. Everybody wants you to go home. You're not going home because you feel guilty because they're still working. So it's gotten them over the guilt factor of your team is okay without you. And they don't look bad upon you when you're not there. Because honestly, Terry and Christian, I want them to take meetings during harvest. I don't need them to be out watching us combine every day. The micromanaging side. There's no, and that's what's probably done the most is I've watched, especially on Terry's, is that he trusts his team and his team trusts him. So if he's not on the farm one day during seeding, they're not sitting there going, well, what's going on? Why is he not here? They're going, I know he's in a meeting that is going to help us in the long run. It's our job just to get the crop in. So everybody is bought in, whether it's values, whether it's goals. They are bought into the big picture, and it's given Terry the ability to leverage, trust his team, grow his team, and bring in really strong people.
I totally agree. 2016, when we went to strategic coach first with Aberhart Ag, Terry didn't have the confidence to pay that bill out of the farm. He didn't have the culture to pay. He didn't have the support of mom and dad to pay that bill out of the farm. 6 years later, they're like, thank God he went, because of how it's changed the interaction, not only with himself, but I think over time your team gets indoctrinated in some of the principles. We never had any permission before in our lives, Evan, to take a day off, especially in the spring and the seeding, like harvest. Like you couldn't get married, you couldn't die, you couldn't go to the ER. Like you got to grind it out, man. And what a fantastic culture shift we're experiencing. I want everybody to feel that.
Well, and I think that was the biggest eye opener for us is when I came over to Hebert Grain Ventures and we sat down and we said, okay, if one of the ownership just happened to die tomorrow or got hurt, does this farm still operate tomorrow? And the answer wasn't clear. Where if a manager at Walmart or an owner of one of the Walmart stores happens to pass away, that store still functions tomorrow.
Yeah.
Agriculture's always been that way, is that if the main guy goes down, there's a good chance the farm ain't running. And I've seen it. I've witnessed it firsthand. Guys have passed away during seeding, and farms around the area have had to, come help and get together because the farm doesn't move. Well, our goal from that moment forward was, how do we make a self-managing company? So you'd mentioned Strat Coach. Christian and I both love Strat Coach for that reason. It's not solely focused on agriculture. It's many numerous industries, but the main focus is a self-managing company. So it's, how do you turn your business into one that A, can outlast you, B, have the leverage and communication and team, models and tools to make decisions and get things moving forward and be progressive and continue to grow. And I mean, it's done wonders for our business, which kind of ties into, where we're going to go and talk about later, but it's the whole coaching side. And I mean, having the touch points with my coach every month or every quarter, again, I'm accountable. I have goals, and if I don't make them, sitting in that room every quarter and telling her that I didn't do it, that's not something I enjoy. So it's definitely, for me, it's changed my philosophy on small business. And between EOS and Strat Coach, I think it's 10x our farm faster than anything I'd ever thought imaginable.
That's cool. Well, let's talk about some of the key concepts in the strategic coach. And I was just actually in Toronto this week, so got a fresh dose and got a boost for the next quarter. Unique ability. Tell us what that means to you within the context of agriculture we're talking about.
So I think the biggest unique ability or lesson I learned was that don't make assumptions. So for me, it was, this is my job title. This is what I'm in charge of. Nobody else can do this. And then all of a sudden, I went from being my own boss in public accounting to working here, and I've got a team of 5 or 6 individuals under me. And all of a sudden, I was starting to make assumptions that, oh no, they like to do this, or they do this, or this is their strength, without actually asking them or actually communicating with them. So what we did is we ran through the unique ability programs with all of our staff, and lo and behold, I have a whole bunch of people that enjoy doing stuff that I don't enjoy doing. So then all of a sudden, I got a significant amount of time to focus on different opportunities that were coming our way. The financial consulting side, which is my biggest strength, I believe. So it gave me more time to focus on my strengths, and all the other admin stuff and all the other items that were coming down the pipe that honestly, I procrastinated. I didn't want to do them. I probably did the worst job ever on them. They're no longer mine. And to tell you the truth, the person doing them is much better at it, much stronger at it, and actually wants to do it. So what it's done is it's changed our culture. I mean, I was used to big business where somebody said jump, you jumped. Well, here it's turned into, if you enjoy doing it, you're going to stick around a long time. So from a retention standpoint, from a unique ability, from a strength, from quality, honestly, the unique ability tools have helped us significantly.
I love that. Entrepreneurial time system.
Oh.
That's got to be a big one to bring into agriculture, man. Especially free days. Because that's the first thing they slap you in the face with when you hit Toronto. 150 free days, bitch. What?
Yeah.
Get up. I paid X dollars for this?
Yeah, session 1, 150 free days. And the first thing you do is you go through, okay, how many weekends do I not look at my phone? Exactly. And that's what it was. The first one was, okay, let's take out the 4 weeks holidays and just go through the weekends. Well, there's not enough days on the weekends to get to 150.
I know. You're like, what
so then it's okay, well, how many weeks do I have to take off? And then you start to realize that, okay, I might get there. But then they throw the curveball at you. Well, no work means you're not on your phone. You have to be present, whether it's a family vacation or whether it's at home with the family or whether it's doing, going golfing or whatever it might be. Free days are free days. There's no work. So it's no look at the phone, no check emails. It's free days. Well, I don't know if I have one day a year, Dan, that I haven't checked my phone. And honestly, you could call it an addiction. Like it is. Yeah. And I think the thing with cell phones is nowadays they are an addiction. And that was probably one of the biggest, like you said, the biggest slaps in the face was that all of a sudden it was a different mindset of, no, you have to do this because if you do this and you clear your head, when you come back to work on a focus day or a buffer day, you actually are more productive and the ideas and everything else will be better. And I've tested it and I agree. It's still, I'm nowhere near 150 and between Christian and I and other people I know in the course, I don't know if anybody's reached 150 other than Dan, but I love the idea and I would love a future where I could hit that. I hope one day, and maybe that's what retirement looks like, is it's still running the business, but 150 free days and not actually looking at my phone. But the concept is correct. The concept is you have to get out of the business to be better at the business. And again, it's a lesson and it's a goal. So it just gives us a focus of this is where we want to get to. This is the North Star.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about the benefits? Because I don't think people really can understand. Just taking 150 free days doesn't make any sense to any entrepreneur or business owner. But there are real world benefits to do so for your business.
Yeah. So to relate it back, we always laugh because after harvest every year, we have what's called the harvest hangover. And we've always tried to manage our way through it and it never works. So what that means is you come off harvest and guys have worked a lot of hours and you got done that last field and everybody's like, we did it. Combine's park in the yard and everybody goes home. And then the next 2 weeks after that, which are still good weeks to get a lot of work done on the farm because the weather's still good and everything's still good. Guys are so burnt out that they honestly cannot work. Whether they come to work, that's fine, but they're not really there. And it happens to all of us. I get through insurance and consulting season, and hopefully when you guys hit the field, if it would stop snowing, I'd be through it and I'd get to have my hangover. But
yeah,
all it does is if you don't recharge the battery, you're numb. So for me, what it is I'll get through May 1st usually or April 28th, they hit the field. All of a sudden my phone stops ringing because guys are busy with other stuff. So those are the days where I really started noticing was, okay, last year I took 2 or 3 days and I literally just did nothing. And it was, go to the gym in the morning, do some shopping, play with the kids. It was literally get away from the business altogether. And then what I noticed is 1 or 2 days, I'm like, I was more excited to come back. Like it wasn't that you weren't dreading walking through the door, which, end of April, I'm getting there. So what it was it motivates you to come back, number one, which is great because you want to be motivated to come back to a job you love. Second thing it did for me is it cleared my head. So instead of being so in the business for so many months, all of a sudden I came back and looked at the whiteboard and saw a few things that I'd probably put to the side. And I'm like, you know what? I think I can start tackling those. And all of a sudden your mind is open. And it's not open as in, oh, there's another task I got to do. It's open as in, okay, what can I do with that? And how can I really take that to the next level? So it does free your mind and it does open things up. And especially on a farm, you get through busy seasons it's really hard to turn around and all of a sudden start working on the business right away. And farmers have to. I mean, you get done harvest and you're going right into year end. You got to get the books caught up. You got to get inventory, get the sale. Like, there is no break. I have found the free day concept of just get away and clear your head. And I've talked to Terry about it too, because he started doing it more this year. And I think it's really helped him as well, is that you get some time with the family, you get out of the business, and when you come back, you are a whole different person again.
Well, he's been doing a lot of it, and it's admirable. But that's where the rubber hits the road with this new program you're launching. And that's, I mean, it's always fascinating to talk to you about everything that's going on in agriculture and what's going on at the farm. But you guys are literally bringing these concepts to farmers through a new program.
So I'd like to say the thought or the brainchild came probably right before COVID hit. So we'd had discussions that first year when I joined Maverick was, what did we see the industry going towards? And I mean, being part of Strat Coach and then implementing EOS, we noticed something that was so good for our business that it almost turned into, why isn't everybody else doing this? And I think it goes back to the you don't know what you don't know factor of things like this. There's not an abundance. And I mean, in agriculture, there's zero. So from our standpoint, it was not just an opportunity for us to get out there, but it was more, how could we help the industry? And then the second part was, the need is there. I mean, we went through mental health issues in agriculture, and we're still there. I mean, stress, like we talked about, is at an all-time high. It's getting guys away from that whole rugged individualism. We have to do it ourselves. And it's putting them in a group, and it's getting collaborative, and it's coaching. It's not teaching. Like I've stood at the front of a room before and I've taught, and it resonates with some guys, but the majority they don't like being preached at. When you turn it into coaching, it's more you're on their side. Like when I deal with my consulting clients, I'm part of their team. So it's getting that you have other people that care about your business and want to see you succeed. It's that type of coaching that we really like. The second part, which kind of launched it, was Christian and I do a whole bunch of professional speaking across Canada, the US. And when we do it, we notice, for the next 3 weeks after, we get a whole bunch of, calls, social media, emails, trying to get more of the concepts that we're sharing with guys. And, how do we implement it? How do we do it? So we realized that we had something, and all it was us sharing the ideas that we have, whether it's at HGV or Aberhart Farms or in Maverick, of this is how we run our business, and this is what's worked and this is what hasn't. And we realized that that's all guys wanted. They wanted somebody to bring some of these tools and some of these ideas right to them, which then led into pretty much the last 6 months of, we decided to go forward with a coaching program, and we've tentatively named it Farmer Coach, and we're going to launch it in Q4 this year. And it's essentially a Strat Coach program built around the same concepts as Strat Coach, but it's directly focused on agriculture. And we're going to have some of the learning concepts of, like we talked about earlier, the ratios, the human resources, EOS. We're going to bring these concepts to the group of producers that wants them and put them all in the room and let them teach each other.
So are you guys working with any of the TPAP folks or strategic coach folks directly, or is this a little bit more of a recombobulation?
This is more of a recombobulation. We like certain concepts, and we've started talking to them about them, and we've started creating our own, and we use our own on the farm all the time, so we have them built already. Mm-hmm. We have reached out to industry partners, and we've had a lot of uptake, so that obviously in the coming weeks we'll probably start releasing some ideas on those. So the industry sees the need. I mean, even the last couple of days, I've seen a few articles where they're asking for it. And when the industry usually asks for something, it's probably a good idea if we can get it out there and provide it. So from our standpoint, we're jumping in. So I would say by the end of the year, this year, Farmer Coach will be launched, and you'll see a lot more of us, whether it's through social media or through hopefully one-on-one.
Well, you guys are doing a great job on killing it on social media, and frankly, it has a lot of value just for Christian to advocate as a common sense voice on behalf of those of us in the industry. Hey, you know what? We don't want to get crushed like the dirty old oil and gas industry has, because we all need to eat and heat our homes, but look what happened there.
Yeah, I think that might have been one of the biggest teachings or learnings we've had in the last 12 months is that we need to be more transparent and more out there. I mean, Christian winning the Cortiva, the Agri-Science Award and going over to Brussels and having some of those meetings on the carbon and environment, it was a clear indication that agriculture is still not out there enough to fight for themselves. Mm-hmm. And the message we got from it was that we needed to be more relevant. So we've turned our focus on the PR side. We're writing more blogs. We're trying to get more out there. We're trying to get it in front of the right people. Because I think going at it from a different position of transparency versus trying to fight everything that's being thrown at us, it's a better method. So instead of attacking the ideas that are coming at us, we need to be transparent. We need to work with them. We need to figure out ways of, whether it's through blogs, newsletters, more professional speaking, it's that transparency that gets you in front of the right people. And then once you're in front of the right people, that's where you actually make a difference in the industry.
What do you see the biggest benefits to being to the producer for this program?
For a farmer coach?
Yeah.
For me, the biggest one is mental health in my eyes. And that's just coming from me seeing what I've seen in the industry, is that most guys don't know where to turn. And for me, it's getting those guys in a room and giving them an outlet to talk to other people, because their problems are no different than most of the other farms. They believe that they're in this bubble by themselves, and they're not. And because farms don't necessarily like talking to each other or giving away secrets, it's turned into you're on your own. And that's the biggest benefit to me. The second one is on the coaching side. I've seen what Strat Coach and EOS have done for our business. I do believe 100% that sitting down and working on your business once every 4 months and setting some goals and coming up with a plan is probably one of the biggest strengths you can have as a leader, whether you're in charge of your farm, whether you're just a member of a farm team. Having the ability to look forward and make a plan is pertinent. And then the last one is, like I said, there is so many concepts coming at guys and they're changing daily. Being able for me to stand in front of them and give them the concepts that I'm giving to Terry and giving to other farms on the consulting one-on-one side, we realize that I can go out and do this for, let's say, 10 to 15 farms before I run out of capacity. Right. If we run a course, I can get in front of hundreds of guys and give them the same concepts that give them the tools to actually 10x their own business. And maybe guys don't want to 10x it. Maybe they just want to survive next year's growing season. Those are the tools they need. And I think we're using them, and we want everybody to see them. So it's that concept of, if I can get you to look at your own statements and do your own analysis, or HR wise, if I can give you some tricks of how right now we have a 7% vacancy rate. We're the worst industry in Canada for labor vacancy. How do we get guys into the industry? Well, it's getting all the farms to realize HR policies and HR recruiting and what we pay guys. And there is a set number we have to look at, and most guys don't know it. So it's just giving a whole bunch of information to guys and allowing them to do it themselves.
If we're doing this show 3 years from now, what has to be true for this program to be a success for you?
I would say success for me is uptake from the industry and uptake from the producers. So what I mean by that is I'm not looking to sell out everything, Dan. I'm looking to get in front of as many people as I can. And I want the industry to recognize this. So I want the banks to recognize that if farms are working on their, if they're coaching and they're working on their business and they're going to these courses, yeah, maybe they're up for preferential rates over other guys because they're actually learning how to risk mitigate their farm. And from an industry perspective, I want hiring. I mean, if they take this course and it makes them more hireable because they know business management. One of the items in agriculture that's missed is business management, because everybody wants the farm legacy and they don't want it to be treated like a business. We still need to operate like a business. We're, multi-million-dollar farms still need to run as if they're a business. So it's for me, if the industry has taken advance of this and recognizes it, and the producers have seen the value, and much like Strat Coach, we got guys coming back year after year. And for me, when I go back into Toronto and I go into that room and see guys that I've been with for 3 years and, say, hi, how's it going? And we catch up, that to me is a win.
Well, you know what's fascinating? I'm just thinking about the huge gap of where we are today in agriculture, which I would say it's safe to say is literally at zero in the context of strategic coach concepts and mentality and business infrastructure. There is so much room to run. And the fascinating thing for me after 6 years in coach, and we're still trying to, I'm trying to stay disciplined to keep going, because it's just like eating. You want to eat something healthy, you got to keep doing it. You got to feed the beast, right? Well, after 6 years, like the first 3 years, we were all talking about our businesses. But after 6 years, the majority of us, the business is doing very good. We've gotten out of crisis mode, but the quality of our life, we've got permission and confidence and clarity to work on the other aspects of our life, which, if the business doesn't suffer because you're not doing very well, or you can't get out of the weeds, or your family life is suffering, or if your family life suffers because of the business you spent your whole life building is the only thing you ever focused on, you go home and nobody's there. I mean, you could touch thousands of lives here and make, thousands of businesses better, make businesses that people want to work at, improve family. We all know it's a family business. Well, I've known brothers that live down the same road. Lanes are a couple hundred yards apart. They'd never speak to each other again. I think it's fantastic what you guys are doing in the industry. I'm so freaking excited for it. And I just, frankly, it's kind of like if you find faith, or you find health and exercise, or you find a way to healthy eat, or whatever it is that brings you abundance and wealth and vigor and joy, you want that for everybody. And that's how I feel about strategic coach and EOS. And that you guys must be so pumped.
Yeah, it's good for two reasons in my eyes. The first reason is it validates what we're doing is, what we're doing is working. So, I mean, we've implemented these things on our farm. We've seen it work firsthand. My consulting clients, I've already given them, the roadmap of what we did, and they are buying into it. And I've seen the uptake. So I'm excited to get the entire industry moving towards that. It's not just, I don't want to just do it to 10 farms that I'm very close with. I want the industry to actually start changing. The other one is, like we said before, times are moving. Policy is a big risk right now. I want these farms to be around for the next 100 years. Like, consolidation is going to happen, and I know it is. But I want consolidation to happen because guys are, they're retiring. They're going to enjoy their retirement. They like life. I don't like consolidation when it's because you can't pay the bills and you're moving on. That's not good for any industry, including agriculture. So, I mean, yeah, I deal with a lot of big farms that are the ones consolidating the industry. That doesn't mean that our consolidation methods are, we want you to fail. It's just a business. And if everybody can succeed, all of agriculture will do better. And honestly, if we got to feed 9 billion people in the world, we kind of need to succeed.
Time to hustle.
Yep.
Agreed. How do people find you and find out about this program?
So as of right now, you can contact us through the Maverick Ag website for now. We're still finalizing our partner group. I would say by Q4, you're going to see a lot of marketing towards Farmer Coach. And once we hit the ground running, we don't intend on slowing down. So I would say give us the 3-6 months here, and you're going to see us in a lot. So, well,
and I was just thinking what we should do is we should have a conversation on a webinar through Aberhart Ag or something with yourself and Terry and Christian, just introducing this program and letting people ask questions. We had a strategic farmer scorecard right before Christmas a couple years ago, and people were just, I couldn't believe the outpouring of people that contacted us just saying, oh man, I have a son that wants to come into the farm and this is so valuable and I appreciate your guys' outlook. The hard part was just starting to even attempt to impart some of the mindset concepts, because it is so stupid simple. Like, it is like we're like 5-year-olds with crayons writing down our feelings and our thoughts and our goals and our dreams and our fears and stuff like that. But you have to get in a group where you're forced to do it. You have to share it and then meditate on it and ruminate on it. And it gets ingrained in who you are, and you start to see the differences of how you're thinking versus everybody else. And you hope that people can come to where you are, because it's really about your health. It really is about your health, and being healthy and strong means you can have the same healthy and strong business. And without it, what's a good business worth? What's a farm? I mean, you can be worth $5 or $10 million, but if you're stressed out to the max, or you're not healthy, or you got family relationships that are suffering, it isn't worth anything at all.
No, and I've noticed that not just in agriculture too. I mean, I
Right.
came to Maverick and the Christian because of that. It was, the hustle of everyday office downtown just wasn't where I wanted to be, and now I'm in a position that I enjoy coming to work every day, and I enjoy what we're doing, and I enjoy getting out in front of the crowds and people and sharing what we're doing. And honestly, if I could get that for every farmer, and that would be a positive for me. So
Your business should set you free. And of course, you're free to come to work and love your business.
Yep.
But, businesses kill people. I've seen it. My business almost killed me a couple times, but I'm still here loving it. And, oh man, I'm proud of what you guys are doing. I was just so glad I ran into you. Keep up the good work. And I know you guys are going to do so much good in the industry. It's hard to fathom. And imagine where you're going to be in 20 years and you could be like Dan Sullivan, like, hey man, I'm living to 175 and you're going to train, what have they trained? They train like 40,000 entrepreneurs. Can you imagine the value they've created? Entrepreneurs create this value in society, man. That's what makes the world go round. Everything that you touch, feel, see, do, it's some entrepreneur had the guts and went for the glory of doing it. And farmers are the ultimate entrepreneurs. So you guys are going to kill it. I'm so proud of you, man. I'm excited.
appreciate it, Dad.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on the show and talking about it.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, man. Keep it real.
You bet.